What's up, YouTube? Optho Info here, back in the infamous garage. Got another video for you today. This week's video is on the arterial supply of the globe and a little bit of the orbit. Sorry about that. And where was I? Oh, and then I want to share with you my memory tool. It's called the One-Armed Diarrhea Dude. It's simple and also ridiculous, so that way you don't have to use any effort to commit it to memory. Or very little effort, I should say, and you can spout off the arterial supply in the heat of a PIMP session, or just if a patient happens to ask you on the spot, you know, some inquiry about their disease process that relates to the arterial supply, like a central retinal artery occlusion with, you know, macular sparing, for example. Anyways, so what's the one-armed diarrhea dude? Let me show you real quick. There is a cross section through the internal carotid artery, okay? Then the ophthalmic artery is the first branch off that. It splits around the globe. Before it splits, it's got this one arm here. It's called the central retinal artery. Feeds perforates the globe and feeds the retina, obviously. And then, so this is my one-armed dude. The other part is the diarrhea. He's having diarrhea into the toilet, which is the globe. The diarrhea represent the posterior ciliary arteries, the ones that stop short in the posterior globe, just feed the choroid. That's called the short posterior ciliary arteries. The ones that go long along the outer sclera to the ciliary body, and the iris are called the long posterior ciliary arteries. And then also, I imagine this guy's squatting and he's got some bulging quads here, some bulging muscles. That's helping you remember that off this fork there are the muscular arteries that run along the rectus muscles and go along to become the anterior ciliary arteries. They feed the part of the lids and also the anterior segment, the conge, and again feed into this major arterial circle of the iris, okay? And I'll show you a better picture of that from Netter, my man Frank Netter. But first, let's just draw it with me this time. A one-armed diarrhea dude, just like that. This is the internal carotid artery. This is the ophthalmic artery coming down. It shoots off the the central retinal artery. After that, it goes down in forks. If this is the right eye, for example, this fork goes to like the lacrimal gland, and I think they call it the lacrimal artery eventually. This side over here is going nasal. It's got some like ethmoidal artery, perforates, stuff that's not really important, okay? Just know that the ophthalmic artery comes down, it shoots off the CRA, and then after that it splits around the globe. And then you've got these diarrhea arteries, which are the posterior ciliary arteries. Those feed, the short ones feed the posterior, feed the choroid. The long ones, they're going along the outer sclera. Ultimately feed into the major arterial circle of the iris, and then you have these muscular branches coming off of the forks that become the anterior ciliary arteries, okay, and feed the anterior segment. But again, feed into the major. Everything flushes. This is like a toilet. Everything flushes into the major arterial circle of the iris. And I'll show you a picture of that. All right, let's see. I think I can make this work. So here is a cartoon drawing that's a little more realistic. Here's the internal carotid artery. The first branch is the ophthalmic artery. There's the one-armed, the one arm of the stick figure right there, the central retinal artery, before the ophthalmic artery forks, okay? And this is the diarrhea here. These are the posterior ciliary arteries. Short ones are they're called the short PCAs, and the long ones along the sclera going to the major arterial circle of the iris are called the long PCAs. And then right here, you can see this little, this is like the quads, the bulging quads, as I like to remember, the muscular branch off of the fork that goes along the rectus muscle. to become the anterior ciliary arteries. And I've got a better picture of that for you. So here we dive into the globe a little bit. See if I can get the lighting right. Okay, I think that's okay there. Here are your short PCAs going into the choroid, long PCA going along the sclera, boom, right into the major arterial circle. And then you have the muscular branch along the rectus muscle over here. And that feeds in not only to the anterior, more of the anterior segment, but boom, again, everything flushes down the toilet to the major arterial circle of the iris, okay? And then there's these radial feeders that go to the minor arterial circle of the iris along the pupillary margin. You can see that a little bit better here, maybe you can see this. Here's the major arterial circle, all these radial arteries going to the pupillary margin, calling it the minor circle. And so one little other thing about the nerve. So obviously, there's different layers to the nerve depending on where, there's the nerve fiber layer, the prelaminar layer, there's the laminar, and then the retrolaminar. The nerve fiber layer is fed by the central retinal artery, and then the two middle layers are being fed by the short posterior ciliary arteries. Of course, what else is going to feed it? It's not going to be the long PCA. It's not going to be the anterior PCA. It's not going to be the central retinal artery. It's the short PCAs feed the two middle regions, the prelaminar and laminar, and then the retrolaminar is fed by the peel arteries, which is like the pia, dura, arachnoid. Those are the meninges. So there's pia arteries all over the place. The peel arteries around the optic nerve happen to feed the retrolaminar part of it. So that's a big question too in ophthalmology, so I just figured I'd throw that in there. Anyways, to summarize, one-arm diarrhea dude, draw it a couple times. How do you do that? You draw a stick figure, but with one arm, who's got some diarrhea into a toilet, which is the eye. Who anybody can do that. Then figure out what arteries are assigned to which part of the body, and you got it. I hope that's helpful. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.